All right, delightful. Let's talk about the nervous system. Has anyone seen the video Stroke of Insight? Anyone ever seen that? So I want you to write that down. Stroke of Insight by Jill Bolte Taylor. She is a neurologist, a brain specialist, who suffered a stroke.
Sorry, what was it called?
Stroke of Insight. Jill Bolte, B-O-L-T-E, Taylor. If you Google Stroke of Insight, you'll pull her up on YouTube. It's like a 20-minute talk. And it's just beautiful, and it relates the nervous system in a way to yoga. Because she has this brain bleed, and she experiences herself having a stroke. And what happens when part of her brain turns off is this experience that sometimes we associate with spiritual awakening. So it's really interesting and cool, and she's very entertaining. So that's a really fun thing just to watch. Sometimes, if we had time, we'd watch it now, but we will focus on this instead. All right, so the nervous system. So honestly, it's like we come to yoga to stretch our hamstrings, to get stronger pecs or whatever. But really, people stay in yoga probably for the impact it has on their nervous system. For the fact that you feel more calm and centered and connected and open and spacious afterwards, which is, yes, about your body, but also about the impact that it has on your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So everything is related to the nervous system. Breathing, is that really loud? Okay. Breathing, moving, digesting, circulating, thinking, all of this stuff. It's not an overstatement to say that the nervous system is involved in every single thing that we do. So physically, our bodies are really nothing but earth and water, like the elements of earth and water, but it's our nervous system that enlivens us. Otherwise, we would just be muddy bags of water, as one of my teachers says. He's like, you're a muddy bag of water. But yet you're enlivened by this nervous system, by your nervous system. So the nervous system governs all aspects of our being, and not the least of which is stress, which is really this crazy, thing that's going on in our particular culture, now. So practicing yoga and meditating have been scientifically validated as therapeutic approaches to managing stress. So this is really, I think, even more than stretching your hamstrings, this is the beauty of the yoga practice and what we can offer to our students. So we'll talk a little bit about what that is and how it all works today. So, the structure of the nervous system. So we can divide it basically in location. We have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So the central nervous system is composed of your brain and your spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system is basically everything else. So if you remember from the anatomy of the spine, we have the brain, the spinal cord comes down through the holes in the in between the discs, and then there are these nerves that shoot out the side of your spine. So the central nervous system is everything that's in the central column, and the peripheral nervous system is everything that's going out. So, but it's fair to say, if you think about it, remember when we talked about the circulatory system, how we said that the circulatory system perfuses like your whole entire body, right? So it's like if we only had your circulatory system, your capillaries, your veins, your arteries, your heart, and we looked at you, you'd be like a very red version of you, basically. Similarly, the nervous system also infuses our whole body. So all of these, these nerve roots and everything that are sending out like little tendrils to get information and to give information through your whole body, through your whole system. So your brain, even though we think of brain, spinal cord, nerve roots, it's all one thing. It's like your brain is in your fingers. Your brain is in your toes. Your brain is in your skin. Your brain, it doesn't end. It's like this kind of extension that's all connected. So I think it's a much more holistic and accurate way to look at the body, to think about how much all of this is everywhere, not that it is, one part. That's actually just an idea with some words in order to, identify different locations. So neurons, the nervous system is composed of special cells called neurons and glial cells. So neurons are composed of the cell body, so that's kind of like, the usual picture that we see of a nerve. And then the dendrites are like the listeners, they listen. The axon is like the talker, it carries information away from the cell. And the power of your neurons, one neuron in and of itself is not that interesting or powerful, but the power of your neurons comes in their ability to talk to each other. And your brain has 10 billion neurons. Oh my gosh. Neurons are hungry. So your brain is hungry. They account for 25% of your daily caloric intake. Greedy little neurons. But maybe that's why we're so tired after we have to think so much. I don't know. I'm totally talking out of my... But I don't actually know that that's true. But I know that after I have to think for a day, like I'm super tired. So maybe that's partly, and want to eat sugar. So maybe that's why. So glial cells are like support cells that they insulate. So they create a sheath. Like if anyone's sort of myelin sheath. Anyways, you don't really need to know this. This is just kind of the general idea. They're like helper cells that help the neurons work. So you basically have 3 different kinds of neurons based on what they do. So some sense things, and they're taking information out from the outside, and they bring it back. So you're like, what does this feel like? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? Like they transmit information back to the center of you, to your brain. Then there are motor neurons, which transmit signals from inside to outside. They're called motor neurons because they can cause movement. Like I lift my arm up, it's because something from here said lift your arm up, and they were like, okay, and then they did that. Oh, that's interesting. Interneurons live in the central nervous system, so this is the 3rd kind, called association neurons, and they transmit signals between the 2. These are like everywhere. So it's kind of like when you automatically shiver, you do something, you're not really thinking about it, but it happens. And they're a little mysterious to me, actually. Actually, the whole thing is a lot mysterious to me, I must confess. The nervous system is like, I'm like, what? It's crazy. I don't understand it at all. It's like a marvelous like black hole or crazy stellar activity. I'm like, what is the nervous system? It's so wild.
It's incredible that if you touch something hot, that we're made to just move our hand away. It doesn't have to go all the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hot. I'm going to burn myself. Take my hand away.
Right?
That's sort of, yeah. It's just things like that are just
like these reflexes. Anyways, yeah.
Reflexes are amazing.
It's nuts. And yeah. Anyways, so we're just touching on we're just giving ourselves an orientation to the landscape. We're like looking at a big map of what the nervous system is, but the jungle is deep if you want to go inside. So neurons talk to each other through chemical and electrical exchange, which is really cool too, to think that we are full of chemical and electrical reactions all the time. And so a chemical reaction across the cell membrane causes the cell to release a signal down the axon, which causes a chain reaction. So again, it's not one neuron firing that makes us so magical. It's when they all talk to each other and do it together. It's like amazing. All right, so central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and we can divide the peripheral nervous system, so that's everything else, into the sensory division and the motor division. And in the motor division, we can talk about something that is somatic or something that's autonomic, which means automatic, right? So this is kind of like a nice little chart. So the autonomic nervous system, this is all the stuff that just happens. Like we have our mind that's going, meh, 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 meh. Go get a chai latte or whatever it's yapping about. And then we have everything that's going on that we're not consciously aware of. So what are some of the things that happen that we're not consciously aware of? Breathing, yeah. Breathing is such a cool one because we get both. We can consciously control it and it's unconsciously controlled. That's why it's such a powerful lever. I'm so glad you said that. What else happens that we don't think about? Thinking? Someone say blinking? Yeah, blinking is another one like breathing that we can do automatically or not. Digestion. Like, are you thinking, gallbladder, please release your bile salt? I don't know. Pancreas, please, blah, blah, blah. Like, we don't think that, right? That just happens. What else happens? Digestion, yeah, all the way down. What else? Moving is a funny one because it's like something that we can do. But yeah, postural muscles, for example, the way you're sitting now, you're not really thinking, femur contract. We're not thinking about it. It just happens. We have this idea about it and then we do it. Crazy.
But it's developed from things that didn't have the ability to think in the beginning, right?
What is?
Our bodies. Like it's come from an age when we didn't have the ability to think.
Oh, like our ability to move?
It happened automatically, and so
yeah.
that we just got the brain lately.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? You think about a little kid moving, they're not thinking. Is that what you mean?
As a kid, I was talking about, some animal in the lake.
Reptiles, fish, right?
Years ago, right?
Yeah. It's true. They weren't thinking about it. That's true. It's like more instinctive, right? The movement that happens. How did that happen? Your heartbeat, your heart rate, your circulation, hormones. Ladies, we're not going like, please, ovary, release egg, right? It's like these things are just happening. Growth, like when we grow, we don't think about, like when we're little kids, we don't think about growing or adding calcium to our bones or mineral salts. It just happens. Anyways, so some functions though, some essential functions, like breathing, blinking too, some of these things are voluntary and involuntary. That means that we can intervene in them. Like for example, while we can't directly intervene in our heartbeat, I can't consciously go slow down. I can control other things that will impact that system. Namely, I can impact my breath. So because breath plays such a huge role in influencing the other autonomic systems like heart rate, stress response, and stress hormones, controlling the breath allows us to take control of our nervous system in a way that other functions don't. Like it's pretty amazing. I mean, you can do it, like I could jump up and down and that would also influence my nervous system for sure. But the breath is a really amazing lever that we have at our disposal all the time. So what are some of the ways that we manipulate our breath when we do a yoga practice? Yeah, we make it longer. Yes. Yeah. Stop it. Yes, we retain the breath sometimes.
Is breath involuntary or
Both. Both. Because it happens like when you're sleeping, when you're not thinking about it. And yet it also, you can actually go in and slow it down or speed it up. So it's both voluntary and involuntary, which is why it's so special. Just even being aware of the breath, even bringing awareness to that, to make it move from unconscious to conscious. Ujjayi, right? That's a way we influence the breath. All the pranayama techniques that we do. Right? Kapalabhati is a way of influencing the breath. So there's lots of tools in yoga which address, hey, manipulate your breath in this way and then see what happens.
I'm currently taking somatics training as well.
Ooh.
Like Thomas Hanks. It's fascinating.
That is cool.
It is. It's like I have any more time on my plate, but I absolutely love it because it controls the parasympathetic nervous system and how you respond to injury.
Ah.
Right? And retraining your body. So like when your back is sore, before you even do anything, your brain is already saying, Like it's so crazy how it knows in advance that
Yeah.
you're about to take.
Don't do it.
Even it's premeditated.
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy. The nervous system is nuts.
Is nuts.
It's nuts.
So we can divide the autonomic nervous system between sympathetic and parasympathetic. Those are two branches that describe two different responses. Has anyone heard, like Dina just mentioned, parasympathetic, sympathetic. Has anyone heard of those terms?
like fight or flight?
Yeah, exactly, like fight or flight. So the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, they work together to maintain a state of homeostasis in your body. Homeostasis being regulation of our own internal conditions. So we're going to talk about those in depth. So the sympathetic nervous system as represented by a tiger. So the sympathetic nervous system activates us, and that is the fight or flight response. So fight, flight, or freeze response, or, okay, not to be all nerdy here, but I heard someone else posit a fourth kind of response of the nervous system, which is very sociological and emotional, which is fight, flight, freeze. So fight, flight, run away. Freeze is like what the deer does. You don't see me. You don't see me. I'm invisible. I'm invisible. You can't tell where I am, right? Or the fawn response, F-A-W-N. This is a human response when somebody threatens you to be like, you're so amazing, and to compliment them. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
Ooh. I was like, whoa. Anyways, there's a cool, if you Google fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, you'll find this cool thread about it that talks about how people who have survived trauma, that can be a response that they use in response to feeling a stress response. Anyways, I relate to that. So the stress response. So how do you know you're stressed out? What happens in your body?
You get tired?
Interesting. In the moment of being stressed, though, what do you feel?
Increased heart, sweating.
Increased heart, sweating,
Shallow breath.
shallow breath. What else? What else do you feel?
Flighty.
Flighty? Yeah. You guys get that adrenaline shock? You get an email you see an email in your inbox from your ex-boyfriend and you're like, is that just me? Is it just me?
No.
Okay. Oh my God, what do they want? Or this is a good one. I open my mailbox and there's something from like CRA, Canada, or like the IRS, and you're like, what did I do? What happened? Right. So your eyes will actually dilate in order to see better. So what happens when we're in a stress response is that the heart rate and the blood pressure increases. Your stress hormones are released like adrenaline. Your eyes dilate, your pupils dilate so that you can see, so you take in more, right? Have you guys ever been stressed or been in a car accident and all of a sudden everything goes into slow motion? You like see everything?
Or you can hear everything.
Or hear everything, yeah.
So everything is like really, really silent and
Yeah.
just hear, like it's weird.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So crazy. Blood flow increases to your muscles so that you can run away or you can freeze really well. Can't see me. And of course, the certain functions are going to be deprioritized. So the blood rushes out to your muscles so that you can fight better or run away better. And so that's away from the core of the body. So the organ function, like anything about like digestion or reproduction or your immune system, all of that's like on the back burner, right? That is not important right now because if I don't survive the next 5 minutes, it's not going to matter. Yeah.
So is thinking.
Yes, yes. Isn't that seem so counterintuitive? We don't think well. It's exactly right. Your brain, you get like brain fog, you can't remember things. It seems like the worst adaptation. When you have a stress response, you lose the ability to think, which is why listening to those pilots on those planes say, in the event of an emergency, the blah, blah, blah will drop down. Put your own mask on first, which is why hearing those things is actually super important because when it happens, we can no longer think straight. Seems like such a bad adaptation.
But I think if you're like getting attacked by the lion, you need to flow with it. You need to just intuitively try to deal with that lion. You can't start thinking about, okay, where's this lion coming from? Why is he attacking me?
What's his purpose?
Oh, I love Calvin.
I love Calvin Hobbes. So the problem with our lives, with our modern lives, is that exactly like when you're dealing with a lion out, then you really want to have that response triggered to do all of those things in your body so that you can run away and deal with it. But the thing is now is that our stress response is triggered all the time, not by a real lion, but by like a lion like this, like a tiger like this, like Hobbes, right? Our brain has evolved to help us escape danger and to protect ourselves, but now our stress response is being triggered when things are not life-threatening. Now it's CRA. Now it's the email. It's not the tiger anymore, right? It's the paper tiger. So because that's happening, we start to have chronic stress. So what are your own paper tigers, you guys? You can write, I think there's a little, is there something? Let's just throw them out. Like what are some of your paper tigers that you react to?
Staff.
Staff? Yeah. Staff.
See an email from staff, I'm like, oh my God, what are you not showing up for?
Email from staff, work, yeah. Kids,
Yes, yeah.
government, rent. Rent. Vancouver real estate. Like, chews me up and spits me out. Relationships. Oh my gosh, I had a paper tiger moment last night. So hard. I was like, I'm so angry at you and I don't know what to do. Yeah, what else?
You could talk like that, it would make it way better.
Totally would. This is how I talk when I'm in my grown-up emotional place.
Financial stuff.
Financial stuff, right? The financial stuff, we think we're going to die. This is where we go to. We're like, I will die and I will die alone and destitute on the streets.
Yes.
Right?
Why?
We're all afraid of that.
So why are we built like that, though? Why
Well,
are we afraid of that?
because millions of years ago, we weren't responding to being destitute on the street. We were responding to like a shark that was going to eat us or a crocodile that was attacking us. So it was very useful to have that thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die feeling, because we were going to die. But now we're not going to die. It just feels like we're going to die, and it's not true. And the problem is that there's more of these stressors of think I'm going to die than there were actually alligators or crocodiles. So we're getting stressed all the time, not like once every 2 weeks when a real crocodile is around or where you hear the rustling in the thing and it actually is a tiger, you know? So we're just getting triggered more.
You think our nervous system would evolve though in a way to deal with that?
Over time though, and we can like actually meditation and yoga can decrease, can suppress that really quick firing response.
But it's not like it didn't exist back in time. It was just different.
It was different. Well, and kids existed back in time. I imagine people were still stressed out about their children, you know, and certain things, but they weren't stressed out about their emails. They weren't stressed out about letters from CRA. You know, it wasn't, perhaps, I mean, I don't know actually, maybe it was just as stressful and we've always been basket cases. But I imagine that also being in nature, they were in a, you know how you feel different when you're in nature?
Yes.
It's a different rhythm. Our life right now is very sped up. Like we get more information in a day than like someone who lived in Dickensian England got in their entire lifetime. Okay, so the amount that we're asking our brain to process is vastly different than what it was doing for the entire time that our nervous system was being cultivated from fishies, you know, so long ago.
We were talking about that though, and we can't even intellectualize it away. We can't even say that doesn't make sense. I shouldn't feel stressed over that.
No, because your body has been evolving for millions of years to make you think certain things. However, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, my friends, and it has to do with your yoga practice. So while these stimuli aren't going to kill us, our nervous system is still responding as if we're going to get eaten by a tiger. The problem is that having too much fight or flight is deleterious to our health, because being in that chronic state of stress over time can cause things like infertility. You guys all know the story. The couple, they were infertile, they couldn't have a baby, and then they like either adopted someone or gave it up and then she got pregnant, right? Like stress has a crazy impact on fertility. Lack of memory retention, this has to do with the hormones in our head, cortisol, I think it's cortisol. Poor digestion, how many of us deal with that? Organ distress, inability to concentrate, inability to heal. Healing takes longer. So not all stress is bad, let's be clear. Like building your muscles, going for a run, some stress can be really, really good and actually increase resilience. However, we want to keep our good stress in short bursts and not have it be like this chronic thing, like this leaky thing that's happening to us all the time. So let's talk first about, before we move on to solutions, let's talk about the parasympathetic nervous system, because this is the opposite of the sympathetic, and they work together. So it is represented by this beach. Don't we all feel relaxed looking at that? No tigers, no emails, no CRA, IRS. So this is known as the rest and digest system. So when we're here, we're not in the fight or flight response. So then the body's energy can go towards supporting all the non-essential functions. Well, they are essential, but the non-urgent functions like fertility, like healing, you know, like repair and maintenance, digestion. This is a little map of the parasympathetic nervous system. Notice that this system is connected to all of the organs. So the heart, the lungs, digestion, kidneys, reproductive. When the system is activated, these areas get more stimulation. Also note the vagus nerve. Now, if you want to, you can talk to Lucky about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is connected to all of the, here's the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is like this magical nerve, and I don't, quite frankly, I don't understand a ton about it, but we're going to talk a little bit about it because it's becoming very hot topic in research now. So
where does it span? Like
it goes from your skull and then it wanders. It's called the wanderer. It wanders all the way down through your internal organs. We're talking about the vagus nerve. I'm just touching on it. I said they should come talk to you about it. Yeah, like he shared with me that there's some interesting research on it. So the vagus nerve is shown in yellow here. And it has mostly a parasympathetic function, and it's gotten a lot of press in recent years for its role in health and stress reduction. So the stimulation of the vagus nerve has been used to treat, this is kind of cool, to treat depression, epilepsy, and Alzheimer's. Not crazy. So it's the 10th cranial nerve and is the widest distribution of all of these nerves, and it wanders through the body, affecting the heart, lungs, stomach, voice box, esophagus, gallbladder, pancreas, small intestine, so it's going everywhere. And it has both motor and sensory function, so it conveys information about the state of the body's organs to the brain, I have in here, it's a little bit like your organ nanny, watching over you, telling you what's going on. And some yoga practices are thought to stimulate the vagus nerve, like Brahmari breath, where you hum. So the voice box and the humming. So some yoga people purport that this actually stimulates the vagus nerve. So anyways, that is yeah, I would love to understand a little bit more about it. So, some stress stats. People are stressed. 77% of people who regularly experience physical symptoms caused by stress, 73% regularly experience psychological symptoms, 48% of half of people, and this is just who's actually telling us, stay stressed has a negative impact on their professional and personal lives, and $300 billion is the cost to US employers in stress-related costs. So, stress can look like depression, anxiety. And one thing to also, I'm just gonna drop this in here, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about this, but you know how people, they did this interesting experiment where people they watched a video, like a cartoon or something, and they had like 3 control groups. One group held a pencil, one group like put a pencil in their teeth, like this. I forget what the third group did. But the group that held it in their teeth like this thought the video was a lot funnier. And that's because it was making them smile. So there's an interesting relationship. You know, if you stand, and I'm not sure, someone said this was under some controversy, but Amy Cuddy has a video where she has people stand in power poses like this. And according to her research, it actually changed their hormones, their stress hormones in their body. If you stood like this for like 2.5 minutes, because your body is in a state which is very contrary to the anxious depression state. So by changing our body language, that can have a profound impact on how we feel and the hormones and what's going on in our nervous system, which is like cool. It's like breathing, and this is what we do in yoga. Think about the back bends we do, or doing high crescent lunge, or doing these kinds of poses, that by impacting the breath and by controlling what we can control. So we can control the breath. I can control what position I put my body in. Even if I'm super freaking depressed, I can say, I don't want to, but I can choose to do this. And that this might actually change my state. This may change how my internal chemistry is talking to itself. And we can do this, right? Which is so amazing. So again, it's not like, we're not therapists, we're not whatever, but as yoga people, the tool is the breath and the tool is the body. So you can have a profound impact on people that you never even talk about, never even mention, through putting them in positions where they get to be more expansive. And by giving them breathing techniques where they get to be more calm. And this is, I think, why we come back to yoga.
And there's that controversial conversation too, that women tend to not, by nature, take up a lot of space.
Right? We're little.
We give permission.
Yeah.
Men will just automatically take up as much space as possible, right? Without a thought. But women need to be given permission still.
To take up space, or tall men.
Yes.
Have you noticed tall men making them, I know so many guys who make themselves smaller so they don't seem threatening to women, as opposed to, it's so beautiful to see men take up enough space and for women to take up lots of space. Like, yeah.
It is beautiful.
It's beautiful. All right, so let's talk about the relaxation response. So we know how the sympathetic nervous system response works, right? We get scared, we freak out, fight, flight, or freeze. But we can also activate the parasympathetic nervous system deliberately. So the relaxation response, in 1977, Herbert Benson coined the phrase relaxation response to describe eliciting the parasympathetic nervous system. Basically, this is what you do. You sit, you focus on one thing. When your mind wanders, you come back to the one thing. That's it. What does it sound like? Meditation. Right? And it can be any one thing. It could be a mantra. It could be your breath. It could be a visualization. So it doesn't have to be anything in particular. I mean, I think it's useful if it's something positive. Like if you're going to choose a mantra, don't choose a mantra like that's elevating, not like sad. Don't make sad your mantra. But by focusing on the one thing, you downtrain your sympathetic response and uptrain the parasympathetic response. So Amazing. So we all do this all the time. So we'll get back to that. We'll circle back to that. So let's look at some of the important nerves in the body while we're here talking about the nervous system. This is a picture from Body Worlds of the nervous system. You can see it looks like a beautiful tree. Oh. One of the nerves that is good to know is the sciatic nerve. So the sciatic nerve comes out from your spine. It's a bunch of nerves bundled together. Runs down the back of your leg. This is the one that runs underneath. Anybody remember what that muscle is that runs from your sacrum to your hip? What's that?
QL, is it?
QL runs from your pelvis to your ribs here, but there's a muscle that runs here. Piriformis. So if you guys reflect back to the anatomy of the hip, the piriformis is the one that if it squishes the sciatic nerve, it mimics something called sciatica, which is where this nerve is impinged. It gets squished. So impingement of this nerve can cause pain, muscle weakness, tingling, all the way down the backs of your legs, electrical sensations. True sciatica is when the sciatic nerve is impinged as it comes out from your spine. But piriformis syndrome is when a muscle, that muscle that straps across it, squishes it. And so it feels the same, like same symptoms, but different cause. One is a bony cause and one is a muscular cause. The muscular cause could probably be more easily addressed, right? So that's helpful. All right. Some other ones to know. The brachial plexus is a group of nerves that comes out from your cervical spine. I feel like you can kind of twang this thing. Aha! Like in here, if you dig your fingers in here and kind of root around a little bit, you might get like a little shocky feeling. There is something called thoracic outlet syndrome, which is where these get impinged. You guys, you're not going to encounter this much, but just mentioning it. Sometimes thoracic outlet syndrome can be caused by a repetitive stress injury. That's just a big chunk of nerves. Brachial plexus. Oh, the ulnar nerve. This is kind of fun. Let's see. Supinate. I'm watching how I did this. So there's also the ulnar nerve. You know how when you hit your elbow, you hit your funny bone and it really hurts? It's because the ulnar nerve, I think. Aha, there it is. It's on the inside. I forgot. Okay. So if you bend your elbow, and you can feel the epicondyles of your humerus. Feel these bony things. That's the bottom of your humerus, your upper arm bone. And then you have your ulna, which is in the middle. So right between the inside and the ulna here, if you twang around in there, you're going to find a nerve. Ew! That's your ulnar nerve. That's just fun. That was just a fun thing to do. Okay, median nerve. This is the one that freaks out with carpal tunnel. So through your carpal tunnel, so you've got this kind of like bony group of little bones here, your carpals, and then they create a little tunnel, and then you have a little ligament over it, and through this tunnel runs the tendon of your hands, right? And also through there runs the median nerve, which is a nerve from your arm that comes down. So what happens is that if you do repetitive stress with your hand, these tendons in here, it's the tendons that get inflamed, the tendon sheaths, and because they're like, we're overworking, we're grouchy. And so they swell up and then they impinge the nerve, which leads to numbing and tingling in your hand. So the symptoms of nerve stuff happening, it's different than muscle soreness. It's like electrical, it's tingling, it can cause weakness.
What about those ganglion cysts? Because I had a big one on my wrist.
Oh, the one you got to thump with a Bible?
Yeah, only the doctor went and yanked it, but it was, all of a sudden it was there. And is it something that's
It's interesting.
attached to a nerve, and does it fill up with...
I don't know. I actually don't know about those except for that you're supposed to hit them with a Bible. Does anybody know? Maybe that's outdated information.
Yeah.
What's a ganglion cyst? Do you know what a ganglion cyst is? So they're not filled with nerves. They're just, that's good because we wouldn't want to take that.
Can you imagine?
But our bodies will grow weird things. Like my body grew a lipoma. A lipoma is a fatty, bulbous thing. I had it taken out. I have a little scar here. But I had this big, gloppy, fat thing that my body just 9 years ago, spontaneously grew. And I was like, what is this? What is this weird thing? I went to the doctor. He was like some 70-year-old doctor. And I was like, what is this? And he's like, oh, I've got one on my back. It's a fatty thing. And I was like, when I am in my 30s and pretty, and I don't want a big fatty thing on my body. But I lived with it for like a long time, and finally I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get this thing popped out. So I watched it. I watched the surgery because it's on my belly, so I could. So I watched them, and they numbed me up, and then I was awake. And then they went in there, and they just went and popped this fatty little blob out. I know, right? That's my face. And stitched.
Dr. Pimple Popper does that, like, she has stuff all the time that she's extracting. I find it so fascinating.
Fascinating. But so these cysts, these lipomas, bone spurs. Yeah. This is really gross. Yeah, amazing, right? Our bodies are so crazy. All right, let's do a little review. So pair up.